Hi, I'm Faisal. I'm the team leader, designer, and unfortunately main programmer for this game.
And I'm Stuart. I was the UI artist, environment artist, animator, blah blah blah. And on the team we also had Rebecca Jackson, who's in charge of character art.
Yep, well this is our entry for Ludum Dare 27. It's on the theme of 10 seconds, so we decided to go with a small surgery operation.
And as you can see for version 1 back there, that was just basically a 10-second timer that you got sort of working.
Yeah. I remember here that was, we started off with just like try to get this angry doctor, so that's why we had Homer Simpson as a base thing. The original idea was just, that was a heart monitor, so you had a slider going along and you pressed a button to stop inside of it. And then this was a more advanced version of it with your assets.
Congrats, you've stabilized the patient. Nice typo.
There's many of those probably in here. Very good at that. So I think initially we're going with like the more times you hit it, you had a big area. The more times you hit it, the area got smaller and smaller. And then eventually we moved away from this to a pulse that you draw later on.
Which I wasn't a fan of the distortion that you used on it. Like,
oh
the
god,
way it
no!
shrinks vertically and grows and whatnot.
I wasn't too much of a fan, but with the space we'd used to maximise the amount of stuff we had in it, I was like, okay, because we had the pulse, and I was like, we need to show off. Like you can see it in the background. How I had it working here was I actually just had the thing going across the screen. And whenever it hit this area, the thing would turn red.
Yeah.
And I tried that for ages, and I even like tried hiding it behind certain things using layers. But the problem was that the animation for the pulse was always slower than the thing that was moving.
Ah, of course.
So
I'm thinking maybe next time we could have done a variance of the pulse, like maybe different kinds of spikes or like ones with different frame rates and different speeds.
There would have been a lot of different ways of doing it. Like the best way programming-wise would have been if I'd have used Flash to actually just generate a pulse by itself and randomize when it would spike. But
well, the thing is, I like the way my hand-drawn one looks. It's all digital and glowy.
But the original point was that you would just only do it 3 times. But I was like, you want the game to get harder, so we have to increase the amount of times that someone has to do something right to stabilize. Yeah. And right here we've got the example of the intro screen. That was the credits where I learned how to do hyperlinks, like embed hyperlinks into buttons, so that was pretty handy. And then
so we can pimp ourselves out even more so.
Well, it's very handy for when you want to show who did what and
references, obviously.
Plugging people and
yeah.
And then this is like when I finally got your pulse working, and then I was like, okay, stretch it to show how close you are, so the bigger it is, the closer you are stabilizing the patient.
I've got a screenshot I need to put in here, by the way. Do you remember when you click on this enough times that the red spike basically goes through the roof?
Yeah.
Like it grows too much.
Yeah, no, there was a lot of problems, like, because sometimes I'd typoed one of the numbers and the number didn't go right, or I'd done the if statement in a wrong way so that things would just keep going bigger and bigger.
It's interesting glitches. It's not the worst kind.
No.
They don't render the game unplayable by any means.
Not always. But yeah, it was pretty fun just finding out what all these glitches were. I think by the end of it, instead of, like, the easiest way I could think of was I used Flash's color transform so that it would change when the pulse would actually turn red, so that would make it easier. It would make it harder when you got through the higher levels, because I just went, okay, if it's between this frame and that frame, turn it red. If it's not, then turn it green.
It's cool that you could do it with code.
Yeah, it was cool. I did not realize a lot of stuff that I could do. Like, I just keep learning more and more about Flash every time I use it. So one day my code might actually be clean.
Without all the swear words inside it. That's a fun little Easter egg for anybody that goes looking. Yeah,
if anyone ever looks through my code, sometimes there are things just called shit and fuckface. Now, I don't like using that, but sometimes, like when I'm using code, I get so agitated and I just try doing something else, and I'll name it like something like that. And by putting swearing into my code, I will figure out the problem. I don't know why.
It's because you threatened Flash, that's why.
It probably is. I wouldn't be surprised.
I think if there was anything I'd like to change to the game, probably, well, the background took me about 3 times to get right, but yeah, I would have liked to have drawn a lot more pulses, because I figured out like a good Photoshop file going, like a layering technique for it. Oh, this title screen, this got replaced eventually as well.
This was the original title screen. I remember just trying to figure out this like the name for this game, and we're just like, you know, how do we come up with it? I think the original thing was we're looking at how, you know, you've got one thing to do and you're gonna mess up eventually because the game doesn't have an ending. So it's just like you had one job and you couldn't even do that, and that's kind of where it devolved from.
Here we go, final version. This looks a lot better. I really like these instruction screens with a little animated paper.
Yeah, I was so happy that those worked because I just used all the assets we had, and I was happy that Flash actually let me resize them and not distort them in any way. So that was very nice that it got to work like that.
I was not expecting it to come out as well as it did, because I can't even fathom how you did it.
Lots of luck and, you know, just being lucky.
The concept art.
Yeah, concept art. Unfortunately, because it was only 2 days, we didn't have, you know, a wide variety of things to show off. It was just, it's only 3 pages, but it's nice to see, you know, how some things develop.
On the same hand, that means, like, you know, all the art we did use was, like, you know, in use rather than just, like, put away the waste.
I love the original concept. It's just a purple stick man. I think this is getting close to the final version of the game where we had the...
It is.
And yeah, it was pretty hard because originally I remember we just had two really good animations of when you got it right, just his chest would pulse with electricity, and then when you got it wrong, it'd just be his full body. But it wasn't easy to tell the difference in them, especially when you start bumping the frame rate up.
Yeah.
So we end up using the chest thing to show that you'd done it right, and we did the small electric thing when you'd just done it wrong, and then when you'd done it wrong a lot, you got zapped like full body, and then I don't know why, but that seemed to be more noticeable. But yeah, I think the main way, like, I'll just tell people this, that we actually made the game harder was I figured out that you can change the frame rate in Flash during play. So just every time you complete the levels, slowly put the frame rate up. Obviously, I've capped it because if you go out to insane frame rates, Flash just can't handle it.
Yeah, and you get a lot of incompatibility issues in other people's machines.
Yeah, I tried to, like, I think 80 is the maximum it's going to go to, but it goes up very slowly. It only starts at 30, so it's not going to get there easily enough. Yeah, and then when you get to the final game, you've got this score sheet that I remember spending ages going, right, we'll have a game over screen. Wait, what would we have as high scores? And it's like, alright, just a simple, you know, number of patients. We give you kind of an average reputation, which I don't know how many people know this, but when you complete a level, the screens you get at the end, those are actually based on how well you did in the operation, which is based on the amount of mistakes.
There's about 3 grades, isn't there? There's like a success, a passable, and a death. The hypothetical doctor in question, like, delivering all this clever, is sort of like a mishmash between Dr. House and Dr. Cox.
Yeah, we're just like, get the worst kind of doctor you can get. We've been Team Tartan Paint, and you've been listening.
And thanks for listening. Links in the description.